The darkness stretched forever in all directions. Captain Veltar stared out the viewport of his ship and saw nothing but empty space. No stars, no planets, nothing but the cold black void that would soon become his grave. His ship, the Starfall, drifted without power through the emptiness between star systems. 3 days ago, they had been a proud science vessel of the Zerathi people. Now they were just another piece of floating metal, slowly dying in the silence of space. Veltar pulled, his coat tighter around his shoulders. The temperature inside the ship had dropped to freezing. His breath came out in small white clouds. Soon even breathing would become difficult as their oxygen ran out. "Captain." The voice belonged to Cathara, his chief engineer. She floated toward him through the corridor, using handholds to pull herself along. Without gravity, everything required more effort. "I need to speak with you." Veltar turned away from the viewport. Cathara looked tired. Her usually perfect uniform was dirty and torn. Like all of them, she had been working without rest to try to save their ship. "What news do you have?" Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer from her expression. "The power core is completely dead," Cathara said. "The weapon that hit us did something to our energy systems. I cannot fix it with what we have on board. We need parts that we do not carry." Veltar nodded slowly. This was not unexpected news, but it still hurt to hear. The Zerathi were known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology. Their ships were marvels of engineering, but all that technology meant nothing when the right parts were not available. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 2 days before the oxygen runs out completely," Cathara replied. "The cold will take some of us before then." They both knew she was being optimistic. Already, 3 of their 12 crew members had died. The ship's medical bay had no power, so they could not even keep the bodies properly preserved. They had been moved to the cargo hold, where the cold would at least slow decay. Veltar thought about the mission that had brought them here. They were supposed to survey dead worlds in this sector, looking for minerals and other resources. It should have been routine work. The Zerathi had done thousands of such missions over the centuries, but then they had found the ancient defense grid. It had appeared from nowhere, floating in space like a sleeping giant. Their scans showed it was incredibly old, maybe millions of years. Whatever race had built it was long gone. Veltar had ordered a careful approach, following all safety protocols. The defense grid had awakened anyway. The weapon it fired was unlike anything the Zerathi had ever seen. It passed right through their shields as if they were not there. It did not damage the hull or kill anyone directly. Instead, it did something to their ship's energy systems, draining them completely and leaving the power core dead. Now they drifted in space, just another victim of ancient technology they did not understand. "Have we received any response to our distress signal?" Veltar asked. Cathara shook her head. "The communication array has very little power. I managed to get one message out on the emergency frequency, but I do not know if anyone heard it." This was the worst part. The Galactic Collective had ships throughout this region: Zerathi vessels, Altarian cruisers, vegan science ships. Any one of them could rescue the crew of the Starfall easily. But space was vast, and rescue ships might not come this way for weeks or months. They did not have weeks or months. They had hours. Veltar made his way to the bridge, pulling himself along the corridor handholds. The bridge was dark except for a few emergency lights. Most of the crew stations were dead. Only the basic life support monitor still functioned, and it showed numbers that grew worse by the hour. 2 of his remaining crew members floated near their stations, wrapped in blankets. They looked up as he entered, hope in their eyes. But Veltar had no good news to give them. "Sir," said Mordan, his communications officer, "I am still monitoring all frequencies. If any ship comes within range, we will know." Veltar appreciated the young officer's dedication, but they all knew the truth. The collective rescue ships traveled the main shipping lanes. This region was empty space, far from any normal traffic. The only reason the Starfall had come here was for their scientific mission, a scientific mission that had killed them all. Veltar floated to his command chair and strapped himself in. The chair felt cold even through his uniform. Everything felt cold now. He closed his eyes and tried to think of his family back on the Zarathi homeworld. His mate and 2 children would never know exactly what happened to him. They would only know that his ship had disappeared in the void. "Captain!" Mordan's voice was excited. "I am detecting a ship." Veltar's eyes snapped open. "Collective vessel?" Mordan worked at his console, the only one still functioning. "I am trying to identify it. The energy signature is strange." "Strange how?" "It is very simple. Primitive even. Not like any collective ship I have seen." Veltar felt a mix of hope and worry. Any ship was better than no ship, but who else traveled this empty region of space? Pirates? Smugglers? Or something worse? "Can you establish communication?" he asked. I'm trying, sir. But their technology seems very different from ours." Veltar watched the tactical display as a small dot appeared on the screen. The approaching ship was much smaller than the Starfall. Whatever it was, whoever was aboard, they represented the only chance for survival. He thought of his dead crew members in the cargo hold. He thought of his dying ship. He thought of his family, who might never see him again. Then he thought of the approaching vessel with its primitive technology and unknown crew. "Keep trying to make contact," he ordered. "We have nothing left to lose." Outside the viewport, space remained dark and empty. But somewhere in that darkness, a ship was coming. Veltar could only hope that whoever was aboard would be willing to help a crew of dying aliens. The alternative was too terrible to consider. Captain Jake Miller was drinking coffee in his ship's small kitchen when the distress signal came through. The bitter liquid was the only thing keeping him awake after 18 hours of travel through empty space. His cargo ship, the Desert Wind, was 3 days out from the mining colonies with a hold full of equipment and supplies. "Jake, you need to hear this," called Lisa Park from the bridge. She was his first officer and the closest thing to family he had left. They had served together for 5 years, hauling cargo between the outer colonies and the inner worlds. Jake floated up to the bridge, coffee cup in hand. The Desert Wind was an old ship, a converted industrial hauler that had seen better decades. Everything on board was patched, repaired, or held together with spare parts. But she was reliable, and that mattered more than pretty looks. "What do you have?" Jake asked. Lisa pointed at her screen. "Automated distress beacon, about 6 hours away at full burn. But Jake, this is not human." Jake looked at the display. The signal was coming from deep space, far from any shipping lanes. The energy pattern was completely foreign, unlike anything in their ship's computer files. "Any idea who it might be?" he asked. "Could be collective," Lisa said. "The signal format is way more advanced than anything we use, but I cannot be sure." Jake thought about this. Humans had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. The relationship with the other alien species was still new and difficult. Most of the collective races saw humans as dangerous newcomers who asked too many questions and expanded too quickly. There had been incidents, misunderstandings that led to fights. Some human ships had been attacked by aliens who thought they were pirates or invaders. Some alien ships had been fired on by humans who thought they were under attack. The smart thing would be to report the distress signal to the proper authorities and continue on their way. Let someone else handle alien problems. But Jake had rules he lived by. One of them was simple. You never leave someone to die in space. It did not matter if they were human, alien, or something else entirely. Space was big and cold and empty, and anyone lost in it deserved help. "Plot a course," he said. Lisa looked at him with concern. "Jake, are you sure about this? We do not know who they are or what kind of trouble they might be in. This could be dangerous." "Could be," Jake agreed. "But if that was us sending the distress signal, I would want someone to come help." Lisa sighed but started working at her navigation console. She knew Jake well enough to know that arguing would not change his mind. When he decided to help someone, nothing would stop him. "Course plotted," she said. 6 hours at maximum burn. But Jake, we should at least try to contact Earth and let them know what we are doing." "Do it," Jake said. "But we are not waiting for permission." The Desert Wind changed course, its engines pushing the old ship toward the source of the alien distress signal. Jake called his crew together to explain the situation. There were only 4 others besides himself and Lisa: Danny Roberts, the chief engineer; Maria Santos, Danny's assistant; Dr. Amy Chen, their medical officer; and Tom Rodriguez, who handled cargo and security. They were not soldiers or diplomats. They were working people who had ended up in space because opportunities on Earth were limited. But they were good at their jobs and they trusted each other. "We are going to help whoever is out there," Jake told them. "I do not care if they are aliens. I do not care if this causes problems with the collective or Earth. Someone is dying in space and we can help them." Danny nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Get the emergency supplies ready," Jake said. "Power cells, oxygen tanks, medical equipment. We might need to transfer people to our ship." Dr. Chen spoke up. "I should review what we know about alien biology. If they are hurt, I need to know how to help them without making things worse." "Good idea," Jake said. "Tom, make sure our weapons are ready but not visible. We want to help, but we also want to be ready if this goes wrong." The hours passed slowly as they traveled toward the distress signal. Lisa worked on trying to make contact with the alien ship, using basic mathematical signals that any intelligent species should understand. For a long time, there was no response. Then finally a reply came through. The signal was complex and beautiful, full of patterns that clearly showed advanced intelligence. But it was also weak, fading in and out like a dying battery. "They are trying to communicate," Lisa said excitedly. "The patterns are mathematical. Basic addition, then multiplication, then prime numbers. They are showing us they understand logic." Jake smiled. "Send back the next sequence in the pattern. Show them we understand too." The conversation continued for an hour with both ships, sending mathematical concepts back and forth. It was slow and difficult, but it worked. They managed to exchange basic information about ship size, crew numbers, and the nature of the emergency. The alien ship was dying. Power was gone. Life support was failing, 12 crew members, 3 already dead. "They need help now," Lisa said. "But Jake, I am reading something else in their signals. They seem reluctant, like they do not want to accept help from us." Jake thought about this. Pride was something he understood. If his ship was dying and alien rescuers showed up, he might feel the same way. Nobody liked being helpless, especially in front of strangers. "Tell them we are coming anyway," he said, "whether they want help or not." The desert wind approached the alien vessel carefully. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not, all smooth curves and elegant lines, but it was also clearly in trouble. No light showed through its viewports. It drifted without power, turning slowly in space. "Life signs are very weak," Dr. Chen reported. "Whatever they are dying." Jake opened the communication channel and sent a simple message in the mathematical language they had developed. "We are here to help. Prepare for rescue." The reply came back immediately, and Lisa translated. "They are asking about payment. They want to know what we want in return for helping them." Jake laughed, but not in a mean way. "Tell them we do not want anything. We help because it is right." The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. Finally, another message came through. "They say they do not understand," Lisa reported. "They are asking again about payment." Jake shook his head. "Some things are the same everywhere. Tell them this. We help because leaving people to die is wrong. No payment needed." Another long silence. Then finally, permission to come aboard. Jake put on his pressure suit and checked his equipment. Danny and Maria did the same. They were about to meet their first alien species and they had no idea what to expect. But one thing was certain. They were going to save lives today. Everything else could wait until later. Danny Roberts floated through the airlock into the alien ship and immediately started shivering. The temperature inside was below freezing. His breath came out in white clouds even inside his helmet. He could see ice forming on the metal walls. "This is bad," he said into his radio. "They are freezing to death in here." Behind him, Maria Santos carried a toolbox full of human equipment. It looked crude compared to the elegant alien technology around them, But Danny had learned long ago that simple tools often worked better than fancy ones. Captain Veltar met them in the corridor. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His uniform was torn and dirty. Ice crystals had formed in his hair. But he stood straight and proud, trying to maintain dignity even in his desperate situation. "I am Captain Veltar, of the science vessel Starfall," he said in careful English. "I thank you for coming, though I do not understand why you help us without payment." "We can talk about that later," Danny said. "Right now we need to get heat and power back to this ship. Where is your engine room?" Veltar led them deeper into the ship. The corridors were beautiful, with smooth walls that curved in perfect arcs. Everything was designed with mathematical precision, but beauty meant nothing when the ship was dying. They found Engineer Kithara in the engine room working frantically at a control panel. She was smaller than Veltar, with the same blue skin but covered in grease and dirt from her repair attempts. She looked up as they entered. "These are the humans," Veltar explained. "They say they can help us." Kithara looked at Danny's simple tools and shook her head. "Our technology is far beyond what they understand. How can primitive equipment fix advanced systems?" Danny did not take offense. He had heard similar comments before from people who thought expensive meant better. He moved to the main power core and started examining it with a basic scanner. "Tell me what happened," he said. Kithara explained about the ancient weapon and how it had drained their power systems. As she talked, Danny studied the alien technology. It was incredibly advanced, built with precision that human engineering could not match. But it was also fragile. "I see the problem," Danny said after a few minutes. "Impossible," Kithara replied. "I have been working on this for 3 days. Our most advanced computers cannot find a solution." Danny pointed to a component, deep inside the power core. "That regulator there. It controls the flow of energy through your entire system. When the weapon hit you, it overloaded and burned out. Everything else shut down to protect itself." "Yes, that is correct," Kithara said, surprised. "But we cannot repair it. The regulator is built into the core matrix. It cannot be removed or replaced without completely rebuilding the power system." "You are thinking like an engineer," Danny said with a smile. "Sometimes you need to think like a mechanic." He opened his toolbox and pulled out a length of heavy cable, some connectors, and a small device that looked like it belonged in a junkyard rather than a starship. "What is that?" Kithara asked. "Power bypass regulator," Danny said. "We use them on mining equipment when the main systems fail. It is ugly, but it works." Kithara stared at him. "You want to bypass our entire power distribution system with that thing?" "Not the whole system," Danny explained. "Just the damaged part. Your power core is fine. The problem is getting the energy where it needs to go. This will create a new path around the broken regulator." Maria had been quiet, but now she spoke up. "Danny, are you sure about this? Their technology is way more advanced than ours. What if we cause more damage?" "We cannot make it worse than dead," Danny said. "And these people will be dead too if we do not try." He started working, ignoring Kithara's protests about how human equipment was not compatible with Zarathi systems. Danny had been fixing broken things his whole life. He had started as a child, repairing old cars and farm equipment with his father. Later, he had worked on mining machines, cargo haulers, and finally starships. The secret was not to think about how things were supposed to work. Instead, think about how to make them work with what you had available. He ran the bypass cable around the damaged regulator, connecting it to power distribution points throughout the ship. The connections were rough, held in place with clamps, and tape that looked terrible next to the perfect alien engineering. "This will never work," Kithara said. "The power flow will be completely uneven. The safety systems will shut everything down." "That is why we disconnect the safety systems," Danny said. Kithara looked horrified. "That is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, the power core could explode." "If we do nothing, you all die anyway," Danny pointed out. "Sometimes you have to take risks." Maria helped him run cables through the ship's corridors. They connected portable heaters from the desert wind to provide immediate warmth. They patched the life support system with oxygen tanks and air recyclers that were designed for human use, but would work for any oxygen-breathing species. The work took hours. Captain Veltar watched without commenting, but Danny could see the alien was impressed despite himself. Other crew members gathered to watch, whispering among themselves in their own language. Finally, Danny was ready to test the system. "Stand back," he warned. "If this goes wrong, it will go wrong fast." He activated the bypass regulator. For a moment, nothing happened. Then lights began flickering on throughout the ship. The temperature started to rise. Air began flowing through the ventilation system. "Impossible," Kethera whispered. "The power distribution is completely wrong. This should not work." "But it does work," Danny said. "Sometimes that is more important than doing things the right way." Captain Veltar looked around his ship as it came back to life. The lights were dimmer than before, and the heating system made strange noises. The power flow was uneven, causing some systems to work better than others. It was not elegant or beautiful, but his crew would live. "How did you know this would work?" Veltar asked. Danny packed up his tools. "Experience. I have been fixing broken things for 30 years. The fancy stuff breaks just like the simple stuff. You just need to find another way to do the same job." Kethera was studying the bypass system, trying to understand how it functioned. "This is not efficient. It wastes energy and creates unnecessary heat." "But it works," Maria said. "And you can improve it later when you get to a proper repair facility." "We learn something new every day," Danny said. "Your technology is amazing, but it is built to work perfectly or not at all. Human technology is built to work even when things go wrong." Captain Veltar nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in both approaches." The Starfall was alive again, powered by human ingenuity and alien engineering working together. It was not perfect, but it was enough to keep everyone alive until they could reach safety. And that, Danny thought, was what really mattered. Captain Veltar stood in his ship's restored bridge and faced a problem he had never expected to have. His crew was alive. His ship was functional. They would reach safety within days. But the cost of this salvation troubled him deeply. The humans had saved them all, and they refused to accept any payment. "Captain," said Communications Officer Mordan, "the human ship is requesting permission to travel with us to the Kepler station. Their captain says they want to make sure we arrive safely." Veltar nodded. "Grant permission. It is the least we can do." But inside he worried. In Zarathi society, every favor created a debt. Every service had a price. The idea of helping strangers, without expecting anything in return, was completely foreign to his people. It made him suspicious of human motives. What did they really want? What was their hidden purpose? The two ships traveled together through space, their different technologies working side by side. The desert wind looked crude next to the elegant Starfall, but Veltar had learned not to judge by appearances. The human ship had saved them when their advanced technology had failed. On the second day of travel, Captain Jake Miller requested permission to visit the Starfall. Veltar agreed, curious to understand these strange humans better. Jake arrived with Dr. Amy Chen, the human medical officer. She carried a bag of medical supplies and asked permission to check on the Zarathi crew members who had suffered from the cold. "You do not need to do this," Veltar said. "Our medical systems are working again." "I know," Dr. Chen replied, "but I want to make sure everyone is recovering properly. Extreme cold can cause problems that show up days later." She examined each crew member carefully, using simple human medical equipment alongside the sophisticated Zarathi scanners. Her approach was direct and practical, very different from Zarathi medical protocols. Two crew members showed signs of serious tissue damage from the cold. The Zarathi medical computer had marked them as untreatable, recommending only pain medication until they died. But Dr. Chen saw something different. "This damage can be repaired," she told Veltar. "It will take surgery, but these crew members can recover completely." Engineer Kethera, who had been watching the examination, shook her head. Our medical protocols are very clear. This level of damage cannot be reversed. Your protocols might be wrong, Dr. Chen said gently. Human medicine deals with cold injuries all the time. We live on a world with ice and snow. We have learned how to fix what cold does to the body. She worked for hours on both patients, using techniques that seemed primitive to Zarathi eyes but produced results their advanced medicine could not achieve. By the end of the day, both crew members were breathing easier and showing signs of improvement. How is this possible? Cathara asked. Your medicine is centuries behind ours in development. Different does not mean worse, Dr. Chen explained. We solve problems differently because we face different challenges. Your people have perfect climate control, so you never learned to treat severe cold injuries. We grew up with winter, so we know how to fix what cold does. Captain Jake spent time with Veltar, sharing meals and stories. The human food was simple but surprisingly good. Jake told stories of Earth, of wars and disasters, of people helping each other survive terrible situations. On our world, Jake said, we learned that helping others helps yourself. When your neighbor's house burns down, you help rebuild it, not because you expect payment, but because someday your house might burn down too. But we are not your neighbors, Veltar pointed out. We are strangers from a different world. Why risk your ship and crew to help us? Jake thought about this for a moment. Because space is big and empty and dangerous. Anyone lost out here is far from home, far from help. If we do not help each other, who will? This conversation troubled Veltar more than the rescue itself. The humans acted without expecting reward, but that made their actions more powerful, not less. A debt that could not be repaid was heavier than one with a clear price. On the third day, Kithara asked permission to visit the desert wind. She wanted to understand how human technology worked. Jake agreed immediately, giving her complete access to their ship's systems. The human ship was a marvel of improvisation. Nothing was perfect, but everything worked. Systems were patched and repaired with whatever materials were available. The engine had been rebuilt 3 times with parts from different manufacturers. The life support system used components designed for completely different purposes. This should not function at all, Cathara told Danny Roberts as he showed her around the engine room. But it does function, Danny replied. That is what matters. We make it work with what we have. But how do you maintain quality control? How do you ensure safety standards? Danny laughed. We test it and fix it when it breaks. Simple as that. Kithara spent hours studying human repair techniques. She began to understand that what her people saw as primitive was actually a different kind of intelligence. Humans did not build perfect systems. Instead, they built systems that could be fixed when they failed. As they approached Kepler Station, Veltar made a decision that surprised his own crew. He requested a private meeting with Captain Jake. You have saved our lives, Veltar said. In Zirathi culture, this creates a debt that must be repaid. But you refuse payment. This leaves me with a problem. You do not owe us anything, Jake said. We helped because it was right. That is payment enough. Perhaps for you, Veltar replied. But not for me. I must find a way to balance this debt, or it will trouble me for the rest of my life. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I am going to do something that may anger my government and shock my people. I am going to speak for humanity before the Galactic Collective Council. Jake looked surprised. You do not have to do that. Yes, I do, Veltar said firmly. For 3 days, I have watched your crew work. I have seen your medicine save lives that mine could not. I have seen your technology succeed where ours failed, and I have seen you help strangers without asking for anything in return. He stood straighter, his decision made. The collective has been debating human membership for years. Many species fear you because you are different. But I have learned that different can be better. Your people deserve a voice in galactic affairs. What will you tell them? Jake asked. The truth, Veltar replied. That when we were dying in the cold darkness of space, humans came to save us. Not because they had to, but because they chose to. That is the kind of people we want as our allies. Jake smiled. Thank you. That means more than you know. It is I who should thank you, Veltar said. You have taught me that the highest technology is not always the best technology, and that the greatest strength is not the power to destroy, but the willingness to help. As Kepler Station grew larger in their viewports, both captains knew that their meeting had changed something important. The debt between them was not one of money or favors, but of understanding and respect. And that debt, Veltar realized, was one he was happy to carry. The Galactic Collective Council chamber was a massive dome that could hold representatives from 1,000 worlds. Today it was full. Word had spread that Captain Veltar of the Zerathi was going to make an unexpected speech about humanity's membership application. Veltar stood at the speaker's platform in the center of the dome. Around him, hundreds of alien beings watched and waited. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple eyes or no eyes at all. But they all shared one thing. Most of them did not want humans in the collective. The Altarian ambassador spoke first. His voice was deep and threatening. Captain Veltar, why do you waste our time with talk of these primitive humans? They are violent and unpredictable. They have no place among civilized species. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. The vegan representative added, humans expand too quickly. They take resources without asking permission. They are dangerous to galactic peace. Veltar waited for quiet before he spoke. Honored representatives, I was like you once. I believed humans were primitive and dangerous. I thought their technology was crude and their methods were wrong. He paused, looking around the chamber. Then my ship died in the emptiness of space and I learned how wrong I was. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew that Veltar was a respected captain with 40 years of service. His words carried weight. 10 days ago, my science vessel encountered an ancient defense grid, Veltar continued. The weapon it fired destroyed our power systems completely. We drifted helpless in the void, slowly freezing to death. 3 of my crew died before help arrived. The collective representatives listened carefully. Ship disasters were rare, but not unknown. Every species had lost vessels to the dangers of space. We sent distress signals on all collective frequencies, Veltar said. For 3 days no one answered. No Zerathi ships, no Altarian cruisers, no vegan science vessels. We were alone in the darkness, waiting to die. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. They all knew that rescue ships could not be everywhere at once. Space was too vast, resources too limited. Then a human cargo ship detected our signal, Veltar continued. An old, patched freighter with a crew of 6. They changed course immediately and came to help us. The Altarian ambassador interrupted. Of course they helped. What payment did they demand? What trade concessions? What territorial rights? Veltar smiled. None. When I asked about payment, they said they did not want anything. They helped because leaving people to die in space was wrong. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives spoke to each other in dozens of languages, their voices mixing into a confused babble. The idea of helping without payment was difficult for many species to understand. The vegan representative called for order. Captain Veltar, you must be mistaken. All intelligent species understand the principle of exchange. Service for service, favor for favor. No one helps strangers without expecting something in return. That is what I believed too, Veltar replied. But I was wrong. The humans saved my ship and my crew, and when I offered them valuable Zerathi technology as payment, they refused. They said doing the right thing was payment enough. He gestured to a display screen that showed images of the human repairs to his ship. The crude cables and patches looked terrible next to elegant Zerathi engineering. Their chief engineer fixed our power systems with primitive human equipment, Veltar explained. Our technology is centuries more advanced than theirs, but it failed when we needed it most. Their simple tools succeeded where our sophisticated systems could not. Engineer Cathara, who had been given permission to attend the session, stood up from the observation area. The human repairs should not have worked, she said. They violated every principle of proper engineering, but they saved our lives. The chamber grew quiet again. Cathara was known as one of the best engineers in the collective. Her words meant something. The humans taught us that different does not mean wrong, Veltar continued. Their medicine saved crew members that our advanced medical system said were beyond help. Their simple technology worked when our complex systems failed, and they did it all without asking for anything in return. The council president, an ancient being from the Centauri system, spoke for the first time. Captain Veltar, even if what you say is true, one act of kindness does not prove that humans are ready for collective membership. They are still young and unpredictable. Perhaps, Veltar agreed. But I have learned something important about unpredictability. We collective species have become too comfortable with our advanced technology and formal protocols. We think we know the best way to do everything. But the humans showed me that sometimes the best way is not the obvious way. He activated another display, showing the desert wind alongside his own ship. Look at these two vessels. Mine is beautiful and sophisticated. Theirs is ugly and patched together. But when my beautiful ship failed, their ugly ship saved us all. The Altarian ambassador was not convinced. You speak of one incident, Captain. How do we know humans will not abuse collective membership? How do we know they will not use our technology for war? Veltar thought of Captain Jake Miller and his simple words about helping neighbors. Because I have seen their character when they thought no one was watching. In the cold darkness of space, far from any authority or witness, they chose to help dying strangers. That tells me more about their nature than any formal treaty could. The debate continued for hours. Representatives argued about human expansion, about their military strength, about their different approach to technology and diplomacy. But Veltar's story had planted a seed of doubt about their assumptions. Finally, the council president called for a preliminary vote. It was not a final decision, but it would show how opinion was shifting. The result surprised everyone. For the first time in years of debate, more representatives voted to continue considering human membership than to reject it immediately. 3 days later, Captain Jake Miller received an unexpected message while the desert wind was unloading cargo at Kepler Station. The transmission was marked with official collective symbols. It was from Captain Veltar, now serving as humanity's first advocate within the collective council. The message was simple. Captain Miller, the collective council has agreed to reopen discussions about human membership. Your actions in the void have spoken louder than years of diplomatic negotiations. The silence has been broken, and the galaxy is listening. Jake showed the message to his crew. They gathered in the ship's small kitchen, the same place where he had first heard the alien distress signal that changed everything. So what happens now? Lisa Park asked. Jake looked out the viewport at the busy space station, where human and alien ships worked side by side. Now we keep doing what we always do. We help people who need help. We fix things that are broken. We prove that being human is not about having the best technology or the strongest weapons. What is it about then? Dr. Chen asked. Jake smiled. It is about choosing to help, even when it is hard, even when there is no reward, even when the people you are helping once looked down on you. Tom Rodriguez raised his coffee cup. To breaking the silence, the others joined the toast. Outside their viewport, the stars shone with new promise. Humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning, but they had already proven the most important thing, that in the vast emptiness of space, no one had to face the darkness alone. The galaxy was finally ready to listen to what humans had to say. And the first words they had spoken were simple. We help because it is right. That message would echo through the stars for generations to come.